Well, my guy I have pretty low here, and I laid into it was Sony Michel, now of the LA Rams, and why I think he's a buy when it comes to Dynasty fantasy football. I'd mentioned, Sean McVay had concerns about Darrell Henderson's durability. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I had concerns about Darrell Henderson's ability. And I know Sony Michel, a lot of people were like, I saw something on Twitter when I said it was a good opportunity on Monday to buy. People were like, what has he done lately? I was like, well, he averaged 5.9 yards per carry, yards per attempt last year alone. Coming into it, his big time run was in 2018. His Super Bowl run. He had the 336 yards, 6 touchdowns. They only played over 3 games, and he looked really good. And you're going to look at him as like, hey, he's in between the tackles runner. This is what he does. But I disagree there because Sony Michel is somebody who was very viable back in the passing game when he was in college.
Yeah.
It's something I liked about him actually a lot. And I talked about James White earlier when we mentioned him, his statistics. That's why he never had the opportunity in New England, because he was there with James White, and that's just where it went. But coming out of Georgia, Sony Michel was a very viable pass catcher running back. He was actually the same thing that kind of James White was to Nick Chubb when they were at Georgia. He was a pass catcher running back. And actually, some of these stats were he was number 2 amongst all SEC running backs that had a certain amount, like I think it was at least 20 targets and yards per run per route, somewhere around there. It was like 1.16, somewhere on those here. He was very viable there. And he was very reliable in there as well because he caught all his passes when he was a running back there. He was number 2 in the nation when it came to drop percentage. And when he got the ball, I remember going back to his tape, what we liked about him so much, when he got the ball in his hands, he was a weapon. When they threw him the football, he got downfield with the ball in his hands, forced missed tackles on a consistent basis, had 55 career receptions there for Georgia as well. And he looked really good doing it. And right now, he just hasn't had an opportunity in New England. He's only been targeted a total of 40 times. He's only had 26 catches for 258 yards and a touchdown. And going off of last year, I said he had averaged 5.9 yards per attempt. Last year, in his final 3 games of the season, 36 carries, 219 yards, averaged 6.8 yards per carry, had 4 catches and caught all 4 targets and 4 catches for 68 yards. I believe firmly that Darrell Henderson is not the back to own in LA. I believe it's Sony Michel. That's a guy who I think is going to own. I think he's going to lead that backfield in touches. I think he's going to lead that backfield in fantasy football production. I think right now, in a very short window it may be, I think Sony Michel, who's looked healthy over the last almost 12 months here, finally could see his first round potential when he was taken late in that draft a little over 3 years ago or 4 years ago. So I think Sony Michel is a great buy. And right now, going as running back like 40 overall, somewhere around there in Dynasty ADP, it's pretty low.
It's running back 61 in Superflex. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if the PPR, sometimes the PPR ADP is different than the Superflex.
Slightly different, but they're close.
Yeah.
Which he is ridiculously cheap. Like, ridiculous cheap for being a starter running back or potential starter running back. It's only James Funk, Darrell Henderson, and Sony Michel. And that's it. And for the draft capital they gave up, they're not going to go out and start spending. First of all, they don't have money to spend. They go out here and get these other running backs. I believe Sony Michel right now for a contending team for the dollar price sign of what it is. Yeah, it's easy. We can go out there and say Gus Edwards is a buy. Mike Davis go out there and get. Out of all the upside, the cheapest value you're going to find right now, it's Sony Michel for the LA Rams. I think he's an absolutely fantastic buy. Coming off a great end of 2020, the opportunity is there for him not only be the main running back, obviously between the tackles, Darrell Henderson, he's a little bit bigger than Darrell Henderson when it comes to size. So he could be on the goal line running back as well. So I think he is, when it comes to, he's 5'11", 215 pounds. Darrell Henderson, 5'8", 200 pounds. So odds would say he's going to be the better red zone threat. And I know the stats say Darrell Henderson converted 4 out of 5 touches inside the 5-yard line. But that's fine. I still like Sony Michel better. So I think he's a great buy. I think you're going to give up a late second for him at the very most. You probably get him for a late third. I don't know if there's been any trades lately, Jared.
Carlos Hyde for Sony Michel. 2022 third for Sony Michel.
So a third-round pick sounds like it's third-round pick value.
Yeah.
And
Marquez Callaway for
I'd be willing to do.
I'll take Callaway there.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to do that, especially because you go in with the understanding that this is a 1-year rental overall. Because assuming Cam Akers comes back and is able to play, he is going to.
I'm not assuming that.
You're not assuming that. Okay. Well, then it's an even greater value for you if that's what you think. But I'm going into it thinking similar lines as Gus Edwards, similar lines as James Robinson, like guys like that, where 2022 is going to look different for them than 2021 did. But to give up a pick, a third round pick for a guy that I think legitimately has low end RB2 probably upside to maybe mid. If everything went perfect,
I think upside mid-range running back too.
Okay.
If the PPR lines, I think it's upside PPR too. Like
Okay.
running back too, like mid-range, like running back like 18, right around there. So not too far off what you're saying, but running back 18 is mid-range running back too.
Right.
So I think if the PPR value falls into place and he can catch 45 to 55 footballs, that's where the value comes to full effect.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is that he actually looked healthy this preseason and was running the ball well and moving pretty good. I mean, the first few years of that is, his professional career, it was night and day from his college tape. The explosion just wasn't there. He looked like he was running in sand basically, and the knee was always swelling. He was getting it drained. It was always an issue. But towards the end of last year, he looked okay, and now again carrying over into the off season and the preseason, he's looked good. So. Unfortunately, those other guys there, I think Bill Belichick is a guy that's always going to use multiple backs. That's just the way he is. And he doesn't care about our fantasy teams and us wanting to have one guy. He just doesn't give a crap. So it ends up being, for the Patriots, it's the pass catching guy is the guy that you want, or the guy that's going to score 18 touchdowns in a year. And the other people, everyone else is just useless. It's very hard to rely on them. So Sony Michel didn't really fall into either one of those categories. He wasn't a guy that was going to score you. He wasn't going to bulldoze people over and score 20 touchdowns, and he wasn't going to catch 60 to 70 balls a year. So he was kind of in no man's land there in the Patriots. So hopefully now he's getting second life here with the Rams, and they're going to get him a lot more usage, which I think as long as the knee holds up, I think he'll be able to produce pretty well on just a normal workload.
I'd throw those third round picks everywhere you got them for him. And you mentioned a 1 year rental. That's the reason you're going to get him for a third round pick. It's going to be like, it's just a 1 year rental. I'll give him for a third for a 1 year rental. Where I think the misconception here is like most running backs are 1 year's rentals. You can make the same exact argument about guys like Myles Gaskin, Mike Davis, Gus Edwards. When it turns out, possibly Chris Carson. The way how often these guys get injured, we've seen 3 young guys go down before even one snap of week 1 of the season. Running backs is such a fluid position. It's why I don't build my dynasty rosters around them. It's why I trade them all the time. It's because it's too fluid, and I can go out here and get a guy like Sony Michel who offers upside as my running back 3 for a late third round pick. So,
and even if it doesn't pan out, let's say Darrell Anderson ends up taking more of the touches, it's a third round pick. And I think that's the best part about that deal, because I don't think I'm quite as high as you are on Sony, but I'll give up a third round pick for upside any day.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good
depth at the running back position. We need depth at the running back. You need depth at the running back position. Doesn't matter how good your roster looks. If you went into this season, like we mentioned before, Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, and Cam Akers, a month ago, you're like, I am loaded at running back. I am young at running back. This is a position I don't have to worry about forever. And here you are a month later with 0 running backs and a murky future as well. And you're hoping they have Sony Michel on your roster, and you're hoping he gets these carries. So I love him. I love him as a buy for his price tag. Let me put it this way. I love him for a buy for his price tag. I love the opportunity that lays before him. And again, my bold prediction a week early is that Sony Michel finishes as a low-end to mid-range running back 2 in a year, and he leads the Rams in fantasy football production. Yeah, now going back here is a guy we talked about a couple of weeks ago that you guys were kind of out on, but you said you would like him if he won the job, and that's Jameis Winston in Superflex. He's going right now as quarterback 29 overall at ADP of 127, courtesy of Sleeper. And I mentioned some of these facts a couple of weeks ago when I talked about Jameis. Number 5 overall fantasy quarterback in 2019. Went out, had the surgery, and he had the surgery. Well, how'd it go? Well, so far in preseason, Jameis has looked really nice. For us to sit here and talk so much about Marquez Callaway and how great those catches were, we have to say how great those throws were as well. Right. Leading a Sean Payton offense with Alvin Kamara, pass catcher running back. I think right now he offers that quarterback 2 upside. And at some point, besides Traquan Smith, besides Marquez Callaway, besides Alvin Kamara, he's going to get Michael Thomas back, as long as it doesn't get real rough there and get a little ridiculous in New Orleans. And this is somebody who I think is really young. A young quarterback is really hard to get in Superflex leagues.
Sure.
He's people are viewing him as a QB3, a young quarterback who has if he can go out this year in New Orleans and produce, he will get one of those 3-year $20 million, $25 million deals, kind of like a Taysom Hill early deal or Ryan Tannehill deals, where he's going to get extended in New Orleans. Like, this is a team that needs this is a league that needs quarterbacks. Jameis, young enough, a good enough arm, and coming out of Florida State, he was I actually liked Jameis Winston a ton coming out. Like, I thought he was an absolutely dynamic prospect. Number 1 overall pick. He has the talent. It's always been it's always been his mindset that's held him back, his maturity levels. And right now with Sean Payton and this team, and what I've seen just in the preseason alone, he offers QB2 upside. And he's going outside of that top 24. To me, that just screams value. Anytime I can get a young quarterback in Superflex that offers upside, I am buying. And what does it take to get Jameis Winston? I don't know what's going in Superflex leagues, but say it's a 23-second because it's a deep class. I am willing to pay that in a Superflex league for a guy like Jameis Winston that gives me depth. Even if it's just quarterback number 3 on my roster. Obviously, if I went into the season with Drew Lock as my number 2 and I was like, oh, this might not work out. You know what I mean? I need a guy. I'm even feeling better about that. But in Superflex, you can never have enough quarterbacks. And Jameis Winston offers that upside of probably the same price point of a Ryan Fitzpatrick along those lines. Tom Brady along those lines. Now, obviously, Tom Brady offers quarterback 1 upside. Fitzpatrick high-end quarterback 2 upside. But Jameis Winston offers a ton upside too at a young age. I am buying Jameis Winston.